Hello, you're welcome to another interesting episode of Inside Out. And this week we'll be talking about something which I think concerns, a lot of us as human beings, I think. Mothers, fathers, children, teenagers, across board. And that is peer influence. How much influence can your child get from friends?
Peer influence can affect positively in this likeness. You can learn from them. A baby can learn working from the peer group, sure you understand. And with that, you can learn to speak and how to rapport with others. Okay, and when she started growing, it depends on what the parents imbibe in such a baby. And when they begin to grow, you see them start exhibiting characters of different traits. So it is in that trait we can pick a trait of negative and the positive.
Well, depending on how you know the character of the person. If you know the character of the person and you know what the person can do or cannot do, then you know what influence the person does to your life. Personally, to me, my friends are more or less like my brothers. Because while you and your friends are always together, you guys sit down, you eat in the same bowl every day, every time, every minute you guys see each other. So their own attitude and way they put things to you makes you know what makes them your friend, and how they influence you depends on the person's character.
Because friends do keep away sadness. When you are into problem, when you went to go and meet a friend, then you explain everything. They do advise you as a friend. Then it's good to keep friends, but not too much.
Positively, if I say.
I can't say positively or negative. The negative side of it can be prefer, take drugs, drink, go to parties, you understand? So positive things that can influence me from friends. When a friend's life is challenging, as in she's encouraging you academically, she's achieving, there are things that can influence me positively, like to work with them.
I think I have a panel that will do justice to this topic. I'm just looking at all the names and what they do, and I think they would just do justice to this. At the end of the day, I know we will be educated and maybe a bit wiser as parents, as children, as sisters, as brothers, as teenagers. I think across board. Okay, I'm going to start my introduction from I would say this is my
left.
But you're right, Abi. Okay. You're Mr. Kayode Salako. He's the MD CEO, Character Builders International. You're welcome. And next to him is Miss Bukola Shosoya. You're an author and a speaker. You're welcome. Mr. Solomon Badebo, who is a broadcaster. You're welcome to Inside Out. And you know we can't talk about this without knowing what God says on anything. So please welcome with me Pastor Mrs. Nkoyo Eromosele, who is a parent. Let me start with you, Mr. Kayode Salako, because you run something called Character Builder International. Yes. And that should already tell me that you should have a bit of an idea of what we're talking about. Peer influence, how important is that is it important to watch or to be mindful of the company your friends keep?
Well, I think it's very, very important, because when you talk about peers, you look at the certain group of people who are of the same age in a society, and looking at influence, you talk about trying to persuade someone in a way to think the way you think or act the way you act.
Yeah.
And we have three major factors that can influence our life. Number one factor is our parents, because they are the first point of contact with, and we are first point of contact with our parents. They can influence our life greatly in life, and also our environment can also play a great influence over our life. Then talking about our topic we're looking at, peers, well, our friends have a great influence over our life, but one must be careful how you select your friends, because there's a saying that show me your friends
and I'll
tell you who you are. So be careful of who you work with, who you relate with, because the people you spend more time with, they have a way of influencing your life, whether negative or positive. So we should all be careful the kind of relationship we keep, and I pray that God will help us.
Okay. Let me talk to you, Buki. Do you think peer influence is that big a deal?
Yes, peer influence is a big deal, because everybody wants to be loved. Everyone wants to love and also to be loved. Everybody wants to belong and wants to be loved. And usually the peer talks about those of the same age group.
Yeah.
People who you have a lot of things in common. And nobody wants to be left out. Everyone wants to feel among. And in the course of this, usually peer influence tends more towards the negative side. There's actually the positive side, but it usually tends towards the negative side, because when everyone believes that you have to join the crowd to do a thing, in the course of it, a lot of people are influenced to do negative things.
But peer influence can be positive too.
It can be positive.
Yeah.
It can be positive, but oftentimes you see it more from the negative aspects, because people might be doing a lot of wrong things, doing drugs, smoking, and
what? Okay, I want to ask this, because that was the source of the argument. If you come from a good home and you are well brought up, and the Bible is there and all of those things, and you get into a gang of bad people, can't you convert the bad people to be like you?
Well, being brought up in a very good home and all of that is good. But it depends on the level the child has actually been able to take in all that the child has been taught. And that will determine if such one will not be influenced. This is what I believe about peer influence. It's more about the individual. The level at which you believe in what you have been taught from home will determine how you'll be able to stand peer influence. But if you don't believe
so the home is important.
The home is important.
The background.
And the individual is also important.
Okay.
How much do you believe in what you've been taught from home?
All right. Thank you very much. Solomon, what's your view? What's your view?
I think peer influence is very, 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 very important. And irrespective of the area we're looking at it usually tends to be more to the negative side.
Why do you think that?
Probably due to my experience.
Okay.
And based on my discussion with a lot of people, it tends to gain the bad things from their peers than the good things. And while speaking about the parents too, this issue is more like the parental influence versus the peer influence, because you got to realize that how many hours do we actually use with our parents? By 7 a.m. in the morning, they are off to their place of office. So we are left with who? Our peers in school or even at home. So we tend to take more from our peers than the parents. Like you said earlier when you were doing the introduction, that train up a child in the way it should go, and when it grows up, it will not depart from it. Yeah. In those days, it works.
In those days. Okay.
When the Western culture is still at the zero level, it works. But now, when we are exposed to a lot of things.
You think because we have been westernized to the place where peer influence is is stronger than parental influence?
Yes, like what I was trying to say the other time. Most of our parents leave home by 7 a.m. to go to their place of office. If we are in school, we are with who? Our peer group. If we are home, we are with what? The TV, the magazine. And this thing tends to influence what we do. And it's usually, like I said, on the negative.
Okay.
Who amongst us wants to take a magazine that talks about a motivational magazine? We rather want to talk about the fashion. We rather want to read about the fashion trend or the musical life. And sorry to say, what do we gain from these musicals we listen to? What do we gain from these magazine junks we take in than the bad influence?
Okay. All right. Okay, Pastor Nkoyo, I'm going to come to you now. What is your take on all of this?
Actually, we've been hearing, what we just heard now, everything that they have said is correct. It has to do with, usually a set group of people in the same age group,
Yes.
age bracket. That's what the peer pressure is all about. And the pressure now tends to be in the negative, because when you look at the world, the positive usually is not easily embraced. People tend to easily they easily shift to the negative norms, and the parents have a lot to do when it comes to this issue. We talk mostly, like he said that the scripture, what you quoted the scripture now, train up a child in the way he should go.
When he grows up,
when he grows up, he will not depart from it. And you are saying that now,
that was in those days.
That was in those days. The scripture still remains the same. It still applies today, and it's very important that parents should really look into the lives of the children that they have brought into this world. That scripture still stands, but it's just that we have to do some, considering the environment that we find ourselves and the age that we are today, we just have to do extra as parents to make sure that the children are in the right place, they have the right norms, that values that they follow. These things are very, very important, because the pressure out there is so huge and so much that it takes the grace of God for a child to live up to expectations. So it takes the grace for a child to be brought up properly.
Okay, I want to ask you a question, Pastor Nkoyo.
Yes.
If you have grounded your child well, maybe the first formative years, and you have given the child proper direction, let me put it like that. I remember I heard a case where they said a child was a pastor's child, actually, that when she gets to school, she changes everything from head to toe. She leaves her house dressed like an SU, and when she gets to school, she's the funkiest babe around. Is it that the upbringing was essentially faulty?
I will say you've used the right word, upbringing faulty, because this has to do with knowledge. What does the Bible say about a child dressing up in a particular way? As long as the child is not nude, and you deprive that child from living or dressing in a particular way that suits her age bracket. But the expectation of the parents is, don't wear makeup, don't wear your hair in some certain fashion, don't do this, don't do that. Actually, is the scripture saying that is the issue? But when we talk about smoking, when we talk about drug, when we talk about some other things that can destroy a child, fine. So I don't know the situation that maybe the young lady finds herself. Is it only just dressing? When she gets to school, she's the funkiest? If she's the funkiest, without indulging in some certain things that would destroy the child, and she still knows that she has not, she has not gone into some other things that she shouldn't go into, because of the parents' background, they expect the child to be something which they are disappointed at the end of the day. But that doesn't mean that
she's not really doing anything wrong. She's just being...
Yes, it's just... Yeah. That's the age bracket. That's how... You can't dress up a child like an old woman.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
Yes, as long as you are not doing something that will destroy you or that is contrary to the scriptures.
But if it was okay, you're not agreeing with that.
I'm not in support of that. I'm not supportive of that.
Why?
Let me quickly say this. When I quoted the Bible verse, I'm not saying the Bible does not exist. I believe so much in the Bible. I understood the Bible very well. What I was trying to say earlier on was that the way people like you were being brought up by your parents then.
Yes.
Fortunately for Agatha, she's from your own, your parents could always say, I know my daughter should be
in the classroom now, and when you go to that daughter's school, you surely meet a girl in the class. But nowadays, if you are Mommy Shola, I saw your son at the garage selling pure water, or maybe let's use
Just doing something
the PlayStation
in somewhere he's not supposed to be.
The parent like, she's not sure. She's not sure. So all I'm saying is, even if you have trained up that child in the right way from your own perception, that does not mean the child is ready to abide. But he actually believes you are of the old schools, and let me do things in my own way, which most of the time is always the wrong way. Now that I did not agree with that.
Wait, you said the child would believe that the parent is old school. I see. The person who gave birth to you is trying to train you is old school.
I think, am I not making sense here? Yes. I think, like the issue of the example you just made now, yes. A pastor's daughter going back to school, you see, being funky, is because they actually refused her to express herself.
That is
why?
The issue.
No,
That's the issue.
Get it right now. Now, how do you express yourself? That's where I want to go now. As a pastor child, you are not different from other people outside. You are human.
But that's what she was saying.
Yeah, I'm agreeing on that point.
Okay.
But where I disagree is, do I need to express myself by being funky?
But what's your own understanding about funky?
Okay, funky now. You're talking about having those
hair, makeups,
those
wanting
black
to
or
do
blue.
The things that teenagers do.
Yes, then the dress she's putting on, all the natural endowments is on the express road. Is that being funky?
Can I say something?
Now, I from what you said, I'm getting some things, and I'm going to ask that as a question as well. Now, in this day and age, even in the day and age of our parents, they had some things that were in vogue then, so to speak. Now, the question is, if I decide, pastor's child do, deacon's child do, deacon and whatever, our first child do, it doesn't matter. If as a teenager, this is what I see as being in vogue, does that mean I am having peer influence, am I being pressurized by my friends to want to look like them? That is the question. And I'm going to ask you, Karide, but I need to take a break first. When I come back from the break, I need you to answer that question for me. Let's take a break. You're welcome back. We're still talking about peer influence. And before we went on the break, I was asking a question. Sure. Okay, so a lot of what we find as being in vogue now might not really be totally acceptable. That's another thing. But is that negative when a teenager, a young person wants to be in vogue?
Well, I'm going to answer it, Nate. I'll look at it from two angles.
Yes.
One, we've talked about parental influence. When the parent pass good stuff to his children, and if the children embrace and receive that which their parent passed to them, they could stand out among the crowd. Because I also believe that we are all product of our thinking. We are product of our thinking, and is also individual things at times. When you look at a young lady who choose to dress in a particular way, at times maybe it could be friends, but at the same time, if that lady at over a period of time think over a kind of a particular dress that I want to appear just like someone else, or let's just say for instance a watch movie, I say I love the way this movie star dress, that's how it picks up the desire. And when he's not sure if for over a period of time, even if opportunity is not really there for him to express himself, a time will still come, he will keep the desire there, maybe not get to school, say yes, I think I can express myself now. I think it's all about individual thing, that some people dress in a particular way or talk in a particular way.
Don't you think it has to do with an age thing?
The age is also very important. But when we look at the age setting, you discover that if you expose yourself to certain group of people who do things in a particular way, you may be forced or compelled to do it. But if you have a good stuff from your parents, you could, by your decision, say, well, others may, I can't.
I have a friend. She doesn't believe in, you know, makeups and all these things. She has a 5-year-old daughter, and the daughter went to school one day. Her mate in the school, her colleague in the school that sits by her side, she used powder, a 5-year-old child that just used powder on her face. And her girlfriend by her side came to her one day and said, you use powder. This powder you are using, you will go to hell. You will go to hell. You will go to hell. And the child was sad throughout the day. I will go to hell. She was not happy because she doesn't want to go to hell. But it's just powder. And she got home and started asking the mother that her friend told her today that she will go to hell. And it affected that child. And the mother had to sit her down to counsel her. It is not your rubbing just white powder to go to school, a 5-year-old child, that will send you to hell. These are just influence. Negatively, that child is poisoning her fellow child, classmates, that because of just powder, white powder, she will go to hell. And it affected that child seriously.
I think, I won't want to say negatively, because the truth of the matter is, we said our parents influence us and they have great role to play in our life. I won't blame that little girl that say you will go to hell.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to bring up.
Because that's the upbringing.
Yes, it's
that's
the upbringing.
Makeup. I believe that, well, you should look in the best way. You don't necessarily to apply this before you look good. If that the right stuff the mother passed to her life from that tender, and she believed that, I won't fall. Yes, maybe later she may now discover that putting it, wearing it won't
mean anything.
But so the time we only tell.
But wouldn't that be conflicting if something your parents have always taught you to be true, you grow up and find out that is not exactly true? Isn't that now negative? Isn't that now negative? Like, I mean, why would you tell somebody you rub powder, you go to hell? Then I grow up and everything around me tells me I'm not going to hell for rubbing powder. So then that means every other thing she has told me is a lie.
The mother had to go to school.
The other time I said they believe that most of these things their parents tells them are of the old schools. Like, I have a sister. She was just telling me this about 3 months ago, that when she was young, my mother used to tell her that, don't touch a guy. If you touch a guy, you get pregnant. I know what, in the class, she doesn't want to touch a guy. She doesn't want to talk to a guy. She doesn't want to sit down with a guy. Unfortunately for her, the day she was supposed to write her exam, she was in the class, and there was this stubborn boy in her class, like she told me. The teacher has to ask the boy, come and sit by her side. She started weeping. She wept like a baby. Why? She said, I am pregnant. She said she's pregnant. And when she got home, she kept on crying. And like, people were like, what's up, man? I am pregnant. At what age? Then she said she was about 13 or 14. She was in JS1 or JS2. You are pregnant. How? A guy sat
next to me.
Now, if my mother should tell her another thing, will she believe? She will not, because she believes that she's actually telling her a lie. She's not left to believe whatever appear is telling her.
Yeah.
I want to pick you up on that.
Yeah.
Whoever told that girl of 5 years that rubbing powder is a sin, make it to go to heaven, has not helped the child in any way. See, these children, their level of assimilation is very, very high.
Yes.
Whatever you say to them now, ask them 10 years time, they will give it to you.
Yes.
The exam, the exact word.
Yes.
And that's why I said this influence thing is usually parents' influence versus peer group influence. If our parents refuses to give us what we want the exact way, we are left to listen to what our peers will tell us, because we believe they are right.
As parents, we owe it a
parents,
duty to keep talking,
keep talking
about what we know is
They will
right.
surely express themselves. When they want to express, allow us to express ourselves.
Even in a situation where you actually have to force some things because you believe it's going to help the child, then give the child reasons for such actions. It's not like just probably the one that said, probably the mother would have told the child, if you use powder, you go to hell. And that, give reasons. Why would it have been that? But because by the time the mother would have to give reasons, then such reasons wouldn't really be real. Whatever thing you're telling a child, give reasons. One thing about our parents is they want things to just happen.
They want a perfect child immediately, like you should know. But when
Why?
you see a child is going wrong or has bad peer influence and all that, you can't keep, sometimes don't you have to insist on certain things? Don't you just have to say you can't do this and
where
that's
it's
fine?
going to destroy the child, then you might need to stand your ground and do some things. If it's going to destroy the child, you need to stand your ground. Yet let the child see reasons, make the child understand why. I think there's a story there is an illustration or a kind of story that was being given. A child and the father were in the boat and they were going, and the child wanted to stand and see what was going on. Probably the child wanted to see what was happening, and the child wanted to stand. The father kept asking the boy to sit down. Sit down. The child will sit down. After a while, the boy will get up again. The father will ask the boy, sit down. We went up for some time. Later, the boy sat down. He didn't get up, and he told the father, he said, "Daddy, I may be sitting down outside, but inside me, I am standing." That means you have only forced me, but I'm doing something because that's what I do. So
Okay.
it's best to don't really force. But where you need to enforce, let the child understand
Why?
and be patient.
Okay, I understand that. Let's take a break. When we come back from the break, we will talk about positive peer influence versus negative peer influence. Let's take a break. You're welcome back. We're still talking peer influence. I was going to, I wanted to come to the positive versus negative peer influence kind of thing. How do you ensure that the influence, or is it possible? I think that would be the first. Is it possible to channel your child to positive peer influence as opposed to negative peer influence? Is it possible? Let me ask you that, Kaede.
Well, I think it's possible. When you are a parent, you should also be concerned about the kind of peers your children are hanging out with. And if you notice that out of them, one is the bad egg that could influence your child in a particular way that you don't like, you can quickly just tell the boy, I don't like this guy. The reason is, like she has said, this guy is caught doing one thing or the other time, and that could dent your name. And because you have this name to protect, please, I won't want to associate with this guy in a cool manner. At first, because of the bond they have had, he may not detach immediately, but over time, if himself see the reason the mother is giving at that point, he may tend to withdraw from that particular person. But also, we also need to understand that, like I said earlier, I still believe it's also more of individual thing. Frame of your belief has a long way to even influence others, not allowing people to influence you. Because first and foremost, you must have a picture of what you also want to become. Maybe your parents must have formed a picture for you, or I want to become a doctor in life, and they have tried all their best to put you through this is what you need, necessary things you need. But if a child now growing up in that way, he may have other purpose. God may have a certain purpose for him, not exactly that doctor which the parent desire. But the truth of the matter is, if he exposes himself to a certain friend of his friend who also have the same vision, that tally with his own vision, he will be influenced in a good way and he will arrive at his destination. So I think it's very, very important for every child to have a vision of where he's going, so that it will not be easily influenced by people.
Okay. Can you put somebody a child that is, let me call him a good child or a good teen or a good whatever, young adult, or somebody that you think will be a positive influence, and then throw him in the middle of people who are not so good or who have issues, and bring and have it the other way around, i.e. have that child influence all the other ones and turn them to positive or peers, so to speak. I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's not as easy as that.
Yes.
consider that. Now, let me just give, this is the kind of illustration I usually see. Probably you have about 6 eggs. One is bad. Then it's easy for that one. Yeah, you can say sure after breaking the 5, the remaining one would affect the other ones. Now imagine you now have one good egg out of the 6. After breaking the 5 bad ones, you can't expect that one good one to turn the 5 bad ones into. It's so difficult to get one good person to influence the others, except they are readily receptive. It depends on the kind of influence that good one can have. So it depends.
I keep hearing this like it's so easy to turn bad, it's not easy to turn good.
Well,
is that true?
I would say this way is a bit difficult, right? But the truth of the matter is there is this thing that everybody knows the truth. But it's just that at times we may shy away from it. But there is nothing you can do against the truth. You can only accept it and embrace it.
Because we all know what is right.
Everywhere you find yourself, you have a leadership role to play. Sure. You don't have to be how many years to play your leadership role.
Yeah.
If you can start from where you have found yourself, all the good virtues in you that you have gotten from your parents or people around you, aunts and uncles, and you release it, you become a very good channel of influence to the people around you. Don't have the mindset that you cannot be different. You can be different, and that is what I tell people. There are a lot of things, even where I found myself today, there are things I cannot do and I don't believe in, and I stick on it. I don't mind. People will not like you. You don't have to be loved by everybody, but keep doing right.
I agree, yes. We can drop someone that is good amongst those that are bad, but it's dangerous. The Bible talks about evil communication corrupting good manners. When we look at the original of communication in the Bible, it talks about character. Now, when you hang around too many bad people, over time, there are some, you may completely not change, as it were, to what they are, but there will be some things that you will pick. That's why I agree with her to an extent. I'm not saying you cannot influence them positively, but it shouldn't be that all your friends are the bad ones. Where are the good ones around you too? I think it should be a mixture of everything. We shouldn't just tend to one side. Yes, drop the bad. Like they said, one bad apple can actually contaminate the others, and it's very true. You may not totally change to become what they are, but you pick some things that are not good. You probably be doubting what you knew before you came into their midst. I'd be like, okay, maybe I'm too harsh on myself, or my parents that taught me these things were too harsh on me, they were too hard on me. These things are not really bad in themselves. So I think we should be careful about that. We should balance it. So I think our parents should tell us why we should not do some things. Don't tell me, don't do this, without telling me why I shouldn't do it. Because these days, like you said, change is taking place. People want to know why they should not do what they are told not to do. They are getting information from virtually everything they see now. So if you are telling them something that they feel is okay, is the trend that is it is the vogue, is the thing that is in vogue, and you're telling me sagging is wrong because it belongs to the prisoners and stuff. Okay, fine, the prisoners. But these days it's not prisoners that are doing it. So why shouldn't I do it? Explain to me. Let me know. Let a child be a child. Let a teenager be a teenager. Let them go through the phases, but guide them. Don't force them to do those things.
We made reference to the Holy Book. There's a portion of the book that says, if you spare the rod, you will spoil the child. So when we talk about correcting our child, is it just by mere words? There is the need also to back our correction up, sometime with a rod, which is not what is happening today. Maybe because of the trend of time. But we really had to go back to those days because it patterned our life structure. I remember way back in our days in primary and secondary school, we got all of this orientation changed in our institution days. But in the primary and secondary school, I don't know if it happens in your days, you were expected to sit one male, one female. And because of certain information we received, we couldn't really adjust ourselves to those patterns. We were told you should not relate with the opposite sex. So when you are asked to sit closer to a female, it's as if one part of your bottom is, and all of that. But you see, the trend is changing. And if we agree that our children are the leaders of tomorrow, then the right values should be inculcated to them. This is one thing that the modern parents of today are not doing, and that is why this topic becomes so important, that we must go back to that old age that you spoke about. We cannot rule out the old values. Our parent did well for us. They said what the parent will sit down and see. A child will climb story buildings and won't see it. So I still believe that the values of our parent is a value that we must still hold on to.
I believe friends really have a very great influence to people, because your friends are your very good, closest people to you. So because I have an experience, really, my friend, there's a canteen in my house, next to my house in my street. I used to tell myself I will never eat there. I would rather take my plate in my house and go and buy the food. There was a day suddenly my friend just influenced that every time they told me, let's go. I said I'm not. I said just let's go for today, and I followed them. Suddenly every time if they're going to come and call me, if not for self-discipline, I just sat down. I said, me Taiwo, my uncle called me that Taiwo, let's go and eat in online. I said no, give me my money, I'll go and buy it myself. And I said, me, Taiwo, I now be better. Allah, you have very good customer now. If not for self-discipline, but if you don't change your environment will change you.
Sure. I have two questions precisely, and I want to address our mom. Yes. Yeah. Everybody's been talking about parental care, parental this, parental that. A parent talking to your child, you have a big role to play and everything. Now, what if a child is born out of wedlock and has nobody? What happens? Don't you think that child will take anything that comes his way? How does peer pressure apply to such a person? How do we deal with it? Now, my second question is, I've heard the saying that says there is no bad child, but a bad parent. Is that true?
If you're born out of wedlock, you don't have people, your parents to take. Your parents might be a single mother or a single father. If you have your mother with you, she can equally play a role that is very good in the person's life. A father also. We know that it is best when both parents are together. If you don't have both with you, you have an uncle. Somebody must be in charge over you that stands for your own parents. And if that person also can also equally play the position that your parents, the role that your parents were supposed to play. If they have the good virtues that they can inculcate into that child, fine. That child will grow up normal.
Child, they say one person does not train a child.
One person doesn't own a child.
That's our saying here.
If I see a child that is going wrong, I don't keep my mouth shut. I counsel that child. I don't care what the trend is today. If I see a child that is not doing the right thing, I stop the child and I talk to the child, because I know that that is the right thing to do.
Okay, the next one he asked, is there any bad child? Or he said,
there is nothing like a bad child. When you came into this world, you came into this world empty. It is what that has been put into you.
We've heard stories. There are children who later, in fact, confessions, armed robbers, they say, my mother tried, my father tried, I was very stubborn. We always say that, crime fighters, all of that.
Yes.
So, I mean, they even acknowledge.
There are situations like that, and that's where the issue at hand comes in. They are influenced by somebody, influenced them into what they got themselves into, because they were not born like that. Okay. Somebody influenced them. And for such situations,
would we still say the background was a bit faulty then to have allowed? Is it also because the background was faulty?
Sometimes the background might be empty, might be faulty, but sometimes no. I've seen parents who have tried all they could to bring a child properly,
and the child has decided
derailed.
Yeah.
I think the issue of peer pressure has to do with so many ills in the society right now. One, poverty, domestic violence. I mean, no child likes to really stay at home when the parents are fighting every time. So in such situations, and there's so many orphans as well, so many widows. So these are some of the issues that have to do with peer pressure right now in the society. And I think if some of those factors are corrected, especially domestic violence issue, if you go to the police stations now, you find out that most of the cases have to do with domestic violence. So most of these children, you may have a family with 5 or 6 children. They spend most of the time outside the house because they don't want to see daddy and mommy fighting every time. So as parents too, they have a very major role to play to avoid things like that.
I think I'll take a last line. Yeah. Let me start with you. Something you want people to go at watching, and in the audience here, to go away with. A thought.
Well, I think I will say this way. From our heart comes our word. From our words comes our actions. From our actions comes our characters. From our character comes our habits. We are the product of our thinking. When you think right, you will live right. When you take negative thought, you will, do otherwise.
When your parents have actually done a good work by bringing you up in the right way, then follow that path. And another thing is you have to be careful of the kind of friends you have. Your friends will either make you or break you. And even when you find yourself amidst peers who could influence you negatively, know that you're yourself. You're not them. You're a different person. Build your self-esteem. Don't depend on them for that, because when you do, you can easily be influenced. So believe in yourself and stand that you are different.
Thank you.
As a man take it, so he is, irrespective of what influence your peers or your parents are going to give to you, it still boils down to you. Because the good thing will be your reward and your family reward. But mind you, the bad things will be your own reward. You will live to either share the gain or feel the pain. You have a choice to make. Let's be good, because we are the leaders of this nation tomorrow.
You can put in everything, you can talk, you can do everything, but it takes God for us to get into our destinies and for us to fulfill why we are born. The reason why God brought us into this world, for you to find fulfillment and to enter into it, it takes God. It is not possible with just talking and all those things. Those things are measures to keep you, is like a guideline, and like things that you remember that you ought to do. But it takes God for you to come into your place that you ought to be.
Okay, I'm wondering if there's anything left for me to say. But you know what I believe about life is that we make our own choices. Your destiny is in your hands. God does not make anything bad.
Yes.
But he has given us free will.
Yes.
And you have the choice. You can even come from a home with absolute. There are people who have come from really bad homes. And they turn out right. You know, so the choice ultimately is yours. Peer influence negatively should not be an issue for you. You should know who you are, where you are coming from, who brought you here, and why you are here. A very big thank you to all of you, to my sponsors, Voltic Water, Rare and Unique for my clothes, Dark for my hair, my fantastic panel, thank you, my wonderful audience, thank you. Until next week, when we come again, talking about something else equally as interesting, bye-bye and see you next week.